You're listening to the Secure Dad Podcast. Discover ways to secure your home, protect your family, and embrace your role as a protector parent. Welcome, friend. I'm Andy Murphy, the creator of the Secure Dad. This podcast serves to help families become proactive in their safety. The information I share on this podcast is for general information purposes only. My goal is to empower you to make safer decisions for yourself and your family. Today I'm going over a few things that you might want to consider when it comes time to buy your child's first phone. We're going to go over some tech specs and then some best practices that parents need to consider. Plus, I've got something brand new. It is a video presentation called 5 Family Rules for Phones, and I'll show you how you can get that for free. All of that and more ahead of the Secure Dad Podcast. Right now, at thesecuredad.com, you can get your copy of my Family Home Security Assessment. This 12-page checklist will show you the best upgrades that you can make to your home to make it more secure and actually increase its curb appeal. I'll share with you how you can strengthen your doors, maximize your alarm system, and even protect the cars in your driveway. Best of all, this assessment is for protector parents of all skill levels. Remember, if I can do it, you can do it. Get your copy today for only $6 at the Secure Dad store. I'll put a link to it in today's show notes. I'm also doing something different for this podcast. I'm offering you a free video presentation, not a PDF download or anything like that or a special bonus podcast. It's a video presentation entitled 5 Family Rules for Phones. And I'll share with you 5 rules that every family needs to strongly consider when it comes to having data devices for kids. By no means am I going to tell you how to parent, but I'm going to make 5 really good points that I need for you to consider. This is like a recorded webinar, so you can watch it on your schedule. To find out how you can get this video, tap the link in the show notes. So today I wanted to share with you some things to consider when it comes to buying your child their first smartphone. This is the second most popular question that I get asked, next to, what firearm is best for home defense. So we're going to look at some tech specs and some general guidelines for parents and for kids. Before we even get to smartphones, know that they still make flip phones, and while they are not cool at all for a younger generation, they are a good solution for simple communication. They can be tracked on most family monitoring apps, and they're pretty cheap. You may want to get a pay-as-you-go flip phone for the family as a backup just in case somebody loses their phone. Plus, you'll look like you're in an episode of Burn Notice, and who doesn't want that? Before we really get started on the smartphones, I wanted to tell you that flip phones are still there, and that's an available option to you. So the first question that I think most parents think about when it comes to a smartphone is Apple versus Android. Maybe you have an old phone that you want to pass down to your kid to save some money, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially since kids break stuff and lose stuff frequently. An old one is not a bad idea. But when it comes to those manufacturers, there are pros and there are cons. When it comes to Apple, I feel like they excel at ease of use, popularity in the US, and privacy and security. That's why chances are you're listening to this show on an Apple device. Apple is great about pushing updates and keeping its phones safe from malware and hackers, but they're not bulletproof, so, don't think that. Apple is also known for its public commitment to privacy, which is good for us as adults who don't want people looking at our texts, phone calls, and browser history. But where it's bad for parents is that Apple makes it harder for us to monitor our kids' texts, phone calls, and browsing history. So privacy and security cut both ways when it comes to Apple. It's great for responsible adults, but it's harder for parents to monitor their kids' activities because Apple is so restrictive with third-party monitoring apps. So now, and that's just a quick overview of what's going on. If you want to go more in depth, there's lots more to do, but I'm trying to pare everything down for you here. So now let's take a look at Android. And I'm going to cut straight to the chase. Android beats Apple when it comes to parental controls and third-party monitoring apps. It beats Apple hands down. Parental control apps like Bark and Canopy work on Apple and on Android, but there is much more control in the Android platform. Simply put, Android is much more open to developers when it comes to privacy. That is why tech experts recommend Android for their kids and teens. If you remember Sarah Kimmel from Family Tech, who's been on this show, she is an ardent supporter of Android phones for kids. However, Android has more vulnerabilities overall than Apple does. And actually, depending on what carrier you have, things can get a little more problematic. Some carriers can't support all the versions of Android's operating system on their phones. If you have Verizon or AT&T, chances are you're going to be okay, but if you use a pay-as-you-go service like Mint or Boost, then you may run into a problem. Also, if you stick with major manufacturers like Samsung or Google, you should be better off. The cheaper the phone manufacturer and the carrier, the chances are that your teen is going to have issues with functionality and be excluded from new games and things like that, new social media platforms, whatever, so just kind of keep that in mind. I will say that I had an Android device a long time ago, and I always felt like it was buggy and it could really crash at any point. Now, things have gotten a lot better since then, but that's just something that I felt when I had an Android device. So again, there are pros and cons to each. It just depends on how you want to monitor your kids' devices. By no means is this an exhaustive comparison. I just wanted to cut to the chase here. And you do need to be aware that kids tend to pick on each other in group texts because of the color of the text message bubble. In Apple's iMessage app, Android's messages are green. In Apple's iMessage app, Android messages appear green, and they don't give you features like if the message has been read, things like that. I know that I've done this with my friends. I'm like, hey, who's the green bubble here? That sort of thing. And this can really be a social issue for teens. A solution is to move group messages to another app, but you still need to make sure that you can monitor that app. You don't want your kids using Signal or Telegram where monitoring apps really just can't go. So just be aware that if you pick Android, your teenager may be picked on because of the green color that message has on an Apple phone. And probably at this point, you're wishing that there was a smartphone that was made for kids and teens. Well, companies like TrueMe and Pinwheel make phones for parents to give to their kids. With these phones, parents can control what contacts their kids put into their phone, the apps that are downloaded, and even time management, and that's just a few of the features that they have. So that exists. And just so you know, these are also Android devices, not iPhones. If you'd like to go that route, you can do your research on TrueMe and Pinwheel to see which one is going to be better for your family. Now, I mentioned Bark earlier in the show, and they are an internet safety and parental control app. They will soon be launching their own phone. What I know so far is that it is a top-of-the-line Android device with Bark pre-installed, so kids' safety will be the top priority in that operating system. It won't look like a child's phone with big buttons on it and it's all red, pink, and blue. That's not it. Kids will not be embarrassed to have this phone. I'll keep an eye on this as it develops and let you know what I can find out. I did reach out to Bark for some details, but they weren't ready to share quite yet, so I respect that. Hopefully I'll have an update on that soon. As a parent in the digital world of 2022, I do highly recommend setting up the native parental controls as well as getting a third-party monitoring app on a smartphone like Bark or Canopy. Do not hand your kid a device that's wide open to the internet. Harmful content and predators are out there, and they know how to manipulate young minds. Remember, Chris Hadnagy of the Innocent Lives Foundation was on the show, and he said, anywhere our kids want to go online, the predators are already there. And don't fool yourself into thinking that your tenacious 12-year-old stands a chance against a seasoned child predator without some sort of help. These predators are the lions, and our children are the lambs. That's just how it works. This is an age-old story that is playing out in a digital world. Before you hand your kid a phone, you need to talk about the responsibility that comes with it. Make sure that your kid, your teen, is mature enough to use the phone correctly. The best way to keep your kids safe on a smartphone is to educate them as users. That's why I came up with my presentation, 5 Family Rules for Phones. This is a free video that I've created that goes over 5 rules that you need to know before you hand a smartphone or data device over to any young person. The whole thing is less than 15 minutes, so think of it as a bonus to this episode. You can get access to that at the link in today's show notes. I hope that I've been able to help you sort out many of the details in this parental decision. It's up to each family to make the decision that's best for you. What works for me may not work for you or your neighbors, and that's fine. But whatever we do, we can't just hand a kid a phone with no education, no monitoring, and just hope that they're going to make good decisions. That's not safe for our kids, and we need to step up to protect them in the digital world too. Well, that's all the time that I have for the Secure Dad podcast for today. Thank you for listening. I want you to see my 5 family rules for phones presentation, and this is something that is absolutely free. Instead of doing a bonus podcast or doing a PDF guide, I just decided to do something different, see how this goes. It's about 10-12 minutes, and I make some really good points about some things that you need to consider when you give your kid a data device. So to learn more about that, just tap the link in today's show notes. I'm Andy Murphy, and until next time, take care and be secure.